Well,
Here we
hello
are.
everybody, and welcome to this webinar about optimizing your employee onboarding. It's hosted by Learningbank and by Ziik. And I can see we still have some more people coming in, so we'll take it slowly so we can get everybody on board here. But today we're really going to dig deep into how to actually do great onboarding, especially when you focus within the hospitality and also a little bit within the retail sector or the retail industry with it. And my name is John, and I'm the co founder and also the chief revenue officer of Learning Bank. And with me today, I have Christopher. Christopher, can you introduce yourself and tell a little bit about where you're from?
Yeah, of course. My name is Christopher. I'm from Ziik. We are a scaled-down social internet that focuses a lot on employee engagement. I'm Swedish, but I live in Copenhagen, the beautiful Denmark, and I've been part of Ziik here for 5 years. So happy to be here and be able to co-host this together with you. It's
Yeah.
something I've been excited for quite a while now, so it's going to be good.
Yes, and for everybody, let's also be transparent. We need to make a couple of adjustments in the last second, unfortunately, because of some sickness in the family. So we're supposed to be standing together. Luckily, in these situations, we're able to just do it digitally. But we'll try to, guide you through everything from today. We're going to have some loose talks, but we're also going to present a little bit throughout. Remember, you can ask questions throughout the chat, and we'll try to make sure that in the end of this, we'll get to the questions. If we have run out of time, then we'll, of course, come back on the questions on email to all of you. So nothing will be left behind. So, but let's try to dig a little bit more deeper into it and see what is actually the agenda for today.
Yep.
So, first of all, an introduction. We've been through that. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the world of hospitality. After that, we're going to talk about what is good onboarding, how to get started, and then Christopher and me are going to share some of the tips, both that we have experienced ourselves, but also that our customers use today on how to actually boost the onboarding experience, and then end off with some key takeaways and some questions. So that's it. And it's approximately 25 minutes from now. So let's dig into it. So,
That's
Christopher,
good.
the world of hospitality. Can you
Yeah.
set the scene on that one?
For sure, for sure. I think what I want to start off with is kind of take it a step back. So my background also comes a bit from hospitality, and I worked for Joe and the Juice, and I was a regional manager for about 2 years. So when we look at hospitality, and I think when we look at this sector as a whole or an industry, what we see a lot is that there are some characteristics to it, and I think that big part of it is that it's an experience economy. So you want to have great experiences, and the experiences come through human interaction. And it's also defined by a lot of different stuff. For example, you have a very competitive way you can put your salary, so it's hourly salary based for all the employees. And there's a very tough working environment. I mean, some of the people I've worked with within hospitality are probably the most motivated, but also the most driven people I've ever met, just because they do 12 to 16-hour shifts, and sometimes they can even do more just because they do it for each other. And then they also have the different characteristics of who works within hospitality. And it can be anyone, who's their first job. There might be some lost souls in there. That was me once upon a time. And then also those who, try to find their career path, and maybe this is a different way for them to go. So there's so many different things to hospitality that makes it unique, but there's also something that makes it hard and a tough industry. And it is that 1,000 others are doing the same. So there's so many doing the same, and I think that really puts it into a tough competitive landscape.
Yeah.
So how do you then differentiate yourself? And I think for me, or what we have seen both from my experience in Seek, but also from my own personal experience, is that you're dependent on your colleagues, you're dependent on the culture, and you're dependent on the brand that you create. And all of these kind of sums up and comes back to the employee, right? So the employee is at the core of what we're trying to deliver within hospitality. And the way to get the employee set up for success is going to be onboarding. So that's kind of how we wrap it back into where I think that onboarding is just such a crucial element to what we're looking at. And that's really where the world of hospitality meets that onboarding and what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, I really agree, Chris. And It's also about the challenges, because when we talk about the things that makes the differentiator, when we talk about the things that actually are important to have success in the hospitality industry, it's also the things that can solve some of the biggest challenges that you're dealing with, right?
Yeah,
So one of the things that I'm hearing most out there is also turnover. I think hospitality, unfortunately, must be one of the things that has the highest turnover at all. And
yeah.
and how do you drive great engagement in a place where it's really hourly base, it's clocking in, clocking out, these type of things, right? You need to be really good at working with the culture as a company, per se,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, for sure. I think also speaking of it, and I think that this is also where you can put some words to it, but it's quite interesting to understand where do people then fail, because I think a lot of times you don't speak too often about okay, what goes wrong, where do companies fail, and why do they fail? Because you have thin margins, you have a lot of employee turnover. So what does that mean, and how does that translate into what you're doing wrong and what you can do better? And I
Yeah.
think that it would be cool if you can just put some words to that.
Yeah, and I think you and I, we were talking about this the other day
Yeah,
when actually prepping a little bit to this one, and it's hard to say where do companies fail, right? But I think one thing I see a lot out there is that we're so focused on getting people so fast up to speed that we're actually forgetting some things, some really important things about it. And this is the part about culture, about creating a sense of belonging out there. There's many places where you go in and you just you meet in, you take your first day at work, and precisely you're just within the business, and you need to do the stuff or the tasks that you need to do. But what is this company? What is the history? What's the vision? What's the values? What are the people that I'm working with? And we can just see that if you don't create that, you're really missing out on something important. And I know a little bit from your background also, right?
yeah, yeah.
Working with culture and setting that scene is just so important.
Yeah, I mean, with Joe and the Juice, where I was at, it was a culture mayhem, and as we discussed this before this webinar, of course, as well, it's the fact of what I could do with my career within Joe and the Juice that really set me off, and it kind of taught me a lot about myself, and the fact that they showed me black and white, these are the steps you're gonna take, and I was like, cool, I am 22, 23, I will try this out, and oh, it worked, cool. It gives me trust in myself and who I am and what I can achieve within business in that sense. But also the fact that it was that black and white made me work harder. It also
Mm.
made me understand the vision and values that I had. And of course, there's always going to be good and bad things about culture in different ways. But I think that it really provided me with that kind of overview of okay, who will take the shift. And I think you also mentioned this the other day, the fact about okay, if you have someone calling in sick on Friday morning, you need someone to cover the Friday evening shift. Who will take it? Someone who has a strong culture will probably have a friend picking it up. Someone who doesn't, they won't do it. So that also matters in that sense.
And I think that's such a concrete example on where there is a big shift within it, if you
Yeah,
get to work with it or not. And I think some companies are a little bit they think, oh, this is going to take time away from the other things. If I do this, if I invest this time within it, then it takes longer time for people actually to get ramped up. That's not the case. Actually, what you can see is that the better we are of creating a sense of belonging, the better we are of making people feel safe the first day, then we'll actually accelerate their learning curve with all the other things, because so much of those concerns and those other things, they'll just be left behind.
yeah, I completely agree, and I think that really tells you about how important it is to just meet that. I don't know, the initial impression, like the first thing that matters, and the last, and how people convey that into working towards each other. And it's not just about having this kind of the director sending it out to you. It's about seeing your colleagues in action, and all that just transcends into your belief in what you're doing. And it can be about serving a dish, but if there's a culture around it, if there's a vision for it, then that dish matters so much more.
Yeah, really.
Yeah,
And that's of course brings us a little bit to this, because we all want engaged employees. And actually, the place really to start with this is to create some healthy habits already from day one. So creating great onboarding is really the foundation for this. If you go wrong with this, and we also know you have a high turnover within it, there is such a big likelihood that the person you just hired will be out of the door within 3, 6, or 9 months time within it. And it's a tough market out there also getting employees still. So it's just such a bad investment not taking onboarding seriously.
Yeah.
And creating engaged employees, it's more than just people being happy. You can see it really impacts, I would say, almost the bottom line of the company, right? Because it's less turnover, it is better performance and revenue within it. It's also about the customer experience that people
Exactly.
are,
Yeah.
are getting there. And as you said, in the industry, it's about great experiences, because if
Yeah.
you're having that bad experience, let's say at a restaurant, for example, you don't maybe even leave a bad review, you just don't come back.
Yeah. I mean, if you go in there and you have a great experience, you will tell 4 friends, and that kind of translates into something else. And if you're really lucky, you'll also get a good review. So it all matters in so many regards, and it goes back to the core of it, right? Employee is the core of hospitality. So if you can get them on board right, you're gonna get them engaged, and you have happy employees, and the rest will kind of follow in many ways. And that's just what we've seen at Ziik as well. That's the journey that many of these successful companies take.
Yeah. And that, of course, leaves us a little bit over to the next part. What is good onboarding? Also, a little bit about where to start.
Yeah,
I'll try to, lead this one a little bit, and then you, of course, also
definitely.
pitch in, Chris, with everything that you know and have experience. Um, before I go into, one of the things we hear a lot is, whew, how much time do I need to invest in creating some great onboarding or implementing new digital tools within it? I know this is something, or some of the questions that you also get a lot within Ziik. What's your
Yeah.
thought on this, Chris?
I mean, I think that in the landscape we are in today, with how far we've gotten technologically, and this doesn't just speak for, of course, Learningbank or Ziik, for any company out there doing our type of business, we've come so far that implementation in itself is normally a lot easier than you think. And I think that's something that people kind of forget, that you do 1 week of overtime, let's say overtime, to implement something that will save you a year of training. Or, for example, on our end, if you implement a couple of hours, when all of a sudden you have communication going and you separate work life from private life, it's the implementation part of it is today gotten so far, and people are so used to technology. Almost any age today is in social media, so they're used to technology and they're used to have it on their phones. So yeah, I think that just speaks into the implementation, and it's become a lot easier. And then, of course, I know that when it comes to learning, when it comes to onboarding, I think that's a huge part of it, and this is kind of your area, right? So I'm
Yeah.
quite keen to hear what we discussed also the other day about how it works, and a little bit more concrete method to it, and what you guys are looking at, especially within the hospitality industry.
Yeah, because I think sometimes you can, there are so many possibilities of what to do that you end up trying to build a rocket ship,
Yeah,
where you should never try to build a rocket ship at a start, right? You should start small and build on, because you'll also learn a lot in the process. So we've tried to make a very simple suggestion here on something that people actually can go out and start doing tomorrow or the day after that, something that doesn't require that you invest 2, 3 months times of implementation. You can do this fairly easy. And this is a journey that I'll just quickly talk you through. So first of all, we have the pre-boarding. So the pre-boarding is so essential, as we also talked about, because this is actually a great place, especially within hospitality, for setting the scene, for making people feel safe, and using that first time from when a person actually signs a contract to when they start, to make them, feel as a part of the company. And I think with today's workforce, we're experiencing that some people are not even showing up on first day. We can see that this really can generate a huge difference within it. And we can actually do it pretty simple. So if we take pre-boarding, for example, and this should, of course, primarily be automized, but you could also start more simple if you want that and do it manually. But we, of course, recommend all automate as much as you can. But the first thing could be a welcome to the company. So here we talk about the vision, the mission, the values, the culture, the DNA, these type of things. It could also be a small video of either the CEO or the HR director or whoever within the company that just sets the scene for this. Then you move on a couple of days after or one day after, you get the next small bite. And that is, what are you going to learn? So, for example, within Joe and the Juice, I know, there are systems, there is different machines to be working with. What are you going to learn over the next couple of weeks? So, setting that scene for what you're going to learn, not telling them exactly what they have to do, but what do they need to learn? And then point number 3, get to know your colleagues. This is the one that I have heard the best feedback from companies about. Small videos of employees actually telling, hey, this is how it is working in the company. This you should be, these are good first questions. Getting that piece of information, seeing a couple of colleagues, it just creates such a huge difference for people. Then expectations. What are the expectations? What expectations do the company have of you? And what expectations can you have of the company? And then maybe ending it all with a, hey, looking forward to see you when you come into your first day. Be aware of, find your manager, do X, do Y, do Z, just a bit of preparation for, again, feeling safe in starting out. And this is, something that we really try to impact as many businesses all to do before the first day at work. And when you then have been, starting, then you get to do the more job specific onboarding. This could be that you work as a waiter or something with guest relations. Then you go down a journey with that. Or it could be that you work with food and beverages, being in the kitchen or something. Or you could be working in administration. Then you'll have some different type of small modules, but a lot of things is going to be practical because let's be honest, you're working on the floor, you need to get it out in your hands. So, but it can be really good to have a couple of digital things also combined in it. We have, for example, McDonald's as a customer, and what they do is they try to take some of the more theoretical things, do that as a digital module, so the time that they can have on the floor together is just optimized and way better, and they don't get to hear the same 2-3 times in a row.
Yeah, I think it's something interesting with it as well as when we look at hospitality, right? And speaking about the pre-boarding time, it's two things to it. How much time do we have to onboard our colleagues? It's often what we see is that there's not a lot of time. They need to be up and running very quickly, but you still don't want to be running through it too quickly. So it's having that, what you're speaking of, the pre-boarding, but also having it on your phone, meaning that you can do the manual stuff, you can also do it online and be reminded of it. And then the second part, I think, is also something very valuable that you can learn from this is, well, whoever is going to be engaged in the beginning, quite early on, will probably tell a bit about their mindset towards the job. So it's also a good measurement to see how committed are you in one sense or another to it. So I think that's super, super interesting to put some words to as well.
Exactly. And Christopher, when you were at Joe and the Juice and those type of things, I assume, we haven't even talked about it, but I assume, was it your manager who did your onboarding?
Yeah, it was always the person who was in the shop, and the onboarding was, for the time being, fairly specific because they knew they were very under quite a harsh time constraint. So it was very specific what they should do and what was going to be on that day. But then there wasn't any e-learning, there wasn't any type of digital tools in that sense. So everything was happening on site. So there was a lot of information to take in, but it was still scheduled enough that you could kind of get the understanding of what was going on. But I think that if you have that blended learning, you'll have even more to it, I think, and especially knowing where and how and when and who to ask about anything really would also make the difference. And I think that's kind of where I'm going to come into a little bit now, as we discussed as well, about where where Ziik comes into the picture. And I think that in many regards, we are engagement, we're communication, and communication is just key as well for the onboarding. So I've just brought up some examples here from our end, what we often see from some of our customers, that just matters. And as you mentioned, we also have McDonald's as a customer, or 7-Eleven, and some other brands. And I think that's what's really cool is when you come in the first time, something you're always nervous about as a new employee is, okay, who's going to be in my team? What's their name? How do they look like? Will I remember them? All of this. And it's a simple thing, but by virtually being able to see them beforehand, as you can see here in number one, is just then you see, okay, who is part of my team? What do they look like? What's your name? So if I want to, I can calm myself down and knowing that. Then we often talk about two things, like having the initial contact from your manager. So it's one thing to see everything in the environment of the learning, but having the manager reaching out to you saying, hey, welcome. And then another thing is having a buddy system. I think buddy system, no matter what industry you're working in, is something you should really have someone you can ask who's not your manager, so you can maybe ask more uncomfortable questions or comfortable questions that matter as well, and know who to talk to. I think that's just crucial for it. And then the last thing is, it's one thing someone telling you about the vision and the target of the firm and what you want to do is one thing to see it. And I think if you come in on a virtual environment, or if you come into the first day to work and they're all happy or they're engaged, or you see a post about some record and people celebrating, and after work, whatever it can be, it kind of puts you in a situation where, like, okay, cool, this is going on. Okay, this makes me interested to be part of this, culture, and be part of this gang of colleagues who do all these fun stuff or are proud of where they're working, and that just makes such a huge impact very early on.
Yeah. And for the body system that you were talking about, just to go back to that one, we've in Learningbank, we've taken it to, I would say, even another level, because we have two bodies now. So we both have a social body
Okay.
and we have a professional body within
Yeah.
it, because we also want people to go a little bit outside their own department, so they have a social body that makes sure you're taking to lunch the first couple of days and you're socialized within it. And then you of course have your professional body that knows the same skills, the same things that you need to do, where you can have that talk as you were talking about.
That's pretty cool. I like
Yeah.
that.
It's trying to move on a little bit, right, and do the next thing.
Yeah.
For the engagement part that we talked about, you said something really interesting the other day, because we were talking a little bit about this with being on, and we also see that people, then some of this communication and these are sometimes moved to social media channels within it. And I think you had a really great point on this one. I don't know if you can remember, but maybe you can explain it again about it, because I actually think it's really important, because well-being is also top of mind out there, and should be something that is taken seriously. And sometimes I don't think we really understand actually what is the pressure that we are putting on people.
Yeah, I think the pressure you're speaking of is about always being connected in one way or another to either your social parts or your work life. And I often use this as one of the reasons why I work at Ziik and why I do what I do. It's because of the thing I do believe we also provide. It's the separation of private and work life. So it's about me being a manager back in the time. I was connected on Instagram, Snapchat, email, Facebook. Everything was used for work. So if I was online and people could see I was online and someone written me a question, well, it kind of creates that stress moment where, oh, I should answer, but should I really? And that, it really turns like your stomach, and then you're stressed and you think about it more and more. So by opting into ensuring that no matter what platform you choose, you separate it. It can be email, and it can be something simpler or something different from what we're talking about today, and especially our services, of course. But the idea of ensuring that the employee feels like, wait, this is work, this is social life, and I don't have to have my manager on Instagram. It makes a world of difference, I think, for anyone's well-being.
I think that's an important thing, really important thing. When we go a little bit back, if I just go one slide back here to the onboarding part, one thing I didn't really get to cover also, and we talked a little bit about who was it who onboarded you, and that was your manager.
Yeah.
And what we're also hearing is that we need to have a good portion of the onboarding a bit more streamlined, because you are very much it is that manager doing the onboarding, but that manager also have a lot of other tasks that that person needs to do. And let's just be honest, onboarding is not always prioritized equally between managers. So the more that we also can help managers out there who's on the floor with creating great onboarding, because most managers, they want engaged, they want happy employees, but they sometimes also just need the tools, the structure, and a bit of help to be able to do it, because otherwise they might drown in the amount of tasks that they need to do just.
Yeah, I mean, I experienced that as well. Part of it, it's about what do I prioritize and can I put the effort into my employees in the way I should, instead of doing maybe the repetitive tasks that they can learn elsewhere, and then put more social aspects to it. Like, how are you doing? How do you think the first week went? Like all of this feedback that is also essential, that might be, pushed aside, where you learn as well. It kind of combines into it. So I think it's, yeah, there's a lot to it that you can speak about, and I think we can speak about this for hours and hours again.
Yes, definitely. And today is also setting a little bit of inspiration and where to get started and what to do. And let's, if we try to move a little bit on and talk about some of the tips, if we should be giving people also something to really concrete to go away with. I'll try to take the first couple ones, then you can join in, right,
Yeah,
Chris?
yeah,
But the part about pre-boarding, it is so essential for the good onboarding, and especially within hospitality, where you're so focused on getting people ramped up really, really fast. And when you're paying that hourly fee, you also want them to use the hourly fee on the floor. Use pre-boarding. Employees actually want it. When they get to sign a contract and start a new job, they're excited, and you can use that time in a really good way to make them even more prepared for the first day. And number two, create a detailed and structured plan, at least for the first couple of weeks. And I would say always also do some kind of evaluation or follow up with the employee after 2 weeks, 1 month, 3 months, etc. within it. It's so important with those follow ups.
yeah. Otherwise, how will you know what you can improve in your onboarding journey, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
And point number three, gamify the experience and the performance. Usually, when I talk about gamification and gamifying, I hear some having, some doubts, like, oh, is this just going to be Angry Birds, right? No, it's not going to be Angry Birds, but it's actually about also meeting people at where they are and what are they used to in their everyday life. If I need to find some information, I can quickly find really cool, engaging content on YouTube, on a lot of things. And also, we're in a place where you're fighting for attention. So you were talking about social media before, Christopher. You know, there's so much going on this phone every day that if you don't try to amp up it a little bit, you might miss out on your target audience. This can be everything from using, medal scores, those type of things, but it can also be the learning content where you try to do a bit more. Uh, I've used this example many times, but it's still one of the best ones, so I keep on using it. But for example, with McDonald's, you have a person that goes in for his first day of work, first job ever. He's maybe 16, 17 years old, and the first thing that they need to learn is about hygiene, which I'm really happy that that's the first thing they get to learn. But what are they meeting? What is their, that first impression that you were talking about? Is it something great, or is it something super boring? So for McDonald's, they figured this one out quickly, and they really gamified that one. I would say almost the hell out of it. It was crazy to see, but it became such a fun experience that they started talking about it even to their parents. The parents started to talking together about it, and I think that's also one of the reasons that McDonald's has I would say a pretty good success in attracting new employees today, because they really take it serious, that part.
Yeah, I mean, especially the more boring it is, the more you have to gamify it, right? If you
Yeah,
think from a 16-year-old mind.
exactly. And number four is combine digital and in-person activities. You need to blend it. I know we're a digital platform. Ziik is a digital platform, but so much of the magic happens out on the floor. But figure out what can you do to make that experience on the floor even more relevant, even more efficient, even better, both for the manager and for the employees. That will really drive a lot of success.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing. And remember that it's not about us speaking about it should be digital only. Like it's so important that you remember that human interaction. It's the experience that you have that really comes and tells. So you want to be focused on human interaction, but there are some repetitive things that we can put
Yeah.
on the cloud and make it easier for everyone. I think that those are the ones you want to really focus down as well.
Exactly. And then number four, I know this, or number five, I know this is a big one for both of us,
Yeah.
but you get to say it, Chris.
Yeah, reinforce your company mission, vision, and values. I think that you touched upon it as well during your pre-boarding, that it's about you setting the scene and showing exactly what's going to happen, what you're working for or towards. And it's the same here when you look at Seek, for example, people come online first time and they see there's something going on. It's not your boss doing it, it's your colleagues.
Yeah.
So if your colleagues are driving something, then it's a verification of that mission, vision, and values, because it's one thing your boss saying it, but colleagues executing it means you believe it in a different way. And the next point, set up a body system. We've spoken a bit about it, so I'm not going to touch too much upon it again, but it's something that is just crucial, having someone to go to with questions. And no matter what the questions are, these are your body, and they don't need to be on the same physical location. It can also be somewhere else, but knowing that you have someone for those questions really, really can make you calmer. And
Yeah.
then team bonding activities, it goes a little bit into this about reinforcing the company mission, vision, and values. But having bonding activities, it can be anything from workshops to after works or to go somewhere to be inspired. Whatever you can do, whatever you can fit, and it doesn't have to be the big things, but it does also increase your engagement. It does help people to understand, okay, we're not just here to serve something, we're here to do something else. And then lastly, make it easy for team members to stay in touch. And I think it's just such a crucial part that it's something that we turn to a point before. It's about your private life and work life. And I want to reiterate that it's important that you separate these, because our well-being, we're being bombarded every day with notifications, and all of our chemicals in our body are going off all the time. So we need to ensure that we're keeping a sane working environment in that sense.
Yeah. And they for those that are here, right? I think, ooh, if I were to, really pick two to, go out and do today, if you're not doing them, for me, it would be the pre-boarding and it would be the body system. No question about it. If you're not doing those two today, go out, do it as soon as possible, because the value of that one for the employee and for the company is just so huge. I don't know. What about you, Chris? If you were to pick two to go out and do today, what will you pick?
That's very tough. I think that it's so tough. No, but I think that the pre-boarding, yeah, maybe that one I would. I think I'll stick to the same. To be honest, I think that setting up a body system also means that you're enforcing the mission, vision, values through that body, and the pre-boarding is just essential to get that first impression that we're going to talk about in the next slide about how it lasts. And I think that's, yeah, all of them put together are too important, but yeah, I'll stick with the same as you say.
Yeah, sometimes we need to choose, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we need to go to the next one because we're going a little bit over time, but I can see people are hanging on, so that's good. So let's take the last slide here.
Yeah.
So key takeaways here. We have three ones that we needed to narrow down within it. So if you were to take one, Chris, which one would you take?
Definitely number three. I've already touched upon it in my last sentence. I think it's something that it's such a huge thing, coming in and seeing what people are doing, how they're acting, whether it's virtually or it's in person. That impression, it really matters, and it lasts, and it can be the differentiator for someone going the extra mile for your colleagues or doing the extra thing. So if you can really nail that start of it, I think it comes a long way, and then of course you need to build upon it afterwards. But yeah, that first impression definitely for me is it's a huge thing.
Yeah. And I'll take number two, but I already talked so much about it, so I will not spend too much time on it. But, this is just something that is obvious to do, right? And the thing about getting started with pre-boarding and onboarding and digitalize it, to be honest, we can see that many companies, if they don't do it today, they could actually invest the time that they spent on hiring one person, invest all that time in actually structuring, making elements of it digitally, and then they get to reuse that each and every time they onboard somebody new. So it is something you can get started with without, as I said before, you needed to build a rocket ship at the start. Start smaller, build upon it, get some experiences within it. That really matters.
Yeah.
And then you're to number one. Uh,
I think just putting a brief word on it, it sums up a lot of what we talked about today, I think. And it showcases that the employee is the start of the culture. And if you can get the employee on board for your vision and what you want to, create, then you're going to also have a culture following that. And the culture is, of course, something that is covered by many different factors. But boiling it down, it just employees, they are your key. They are these ones who will create value for you. So if they're not on board, you're never going to get that very far. That's just my experience, both within from Ziik and from my personal experience.
Yeah, just totally agree. I think, we've had a couple of questions, but, given time, and also I think it was such a strong point to end on. Listen up, everybody. We'll get back to the point that, or the questions in the chat to the people that wrote within them. Remember, if you want more inspiration, if you want to know even more about onboarding or engagement or communication, reach out to Chris, reach out to me, or some other in our organization. We love to inspire. We love to talk about this. I would even say we're a bit nerdy about it, but yeah, but it's really been a pleasure having you all here today. And Christopher, a pleasure having you here.
I
Hopefully,
mean,
people give us good feedback. We get to do it again someday.
I hope so too. I mean, I'm very happy to invade your office today, even if you're not here. At least Ziik is in Learningbank's office, so
Yeah,
seeing the sites and meeting everyone, it's so nice. And yeah, thank you so much for today, John. And guys, I hope you enjoyed the inspiration and more to come, I hope.
yeah. Thank you so much. Have a good day, everybody. Bye
Take care,
bye.
everyone. Bye.